We are talking stories, people and tastes that make Dubai such a culinary hub. So our guest co-host today is a diva for sure, but a good diva because she loves her food just like I do. So I'd like to welcome to the show Samantha Wood, the founder of Food Diva. Samantha, welcome to the show. Should I say welcome back?
Yes, thank you for having me back again.
You know, I was just looking at your Instagram, Samantha, and I always wonder, how do you get to capture food so deliciously? I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm no photographer, but I feel like a lot of the times when I take pictures of my food, I don't do it any justice.
Do you know, it's very tricky photography, but I'm a writer. I'm not a photographer. I've learned photography on the job, and actually the challenge you have with restaurant dining is that typically I'm reviewing in the evening. Lighting's not great, so it's actually really, really tricky to capture those photos. But my husband is always my plus one when I'm reviewing, and he just shines his camera light, which helps.
Yeah. The perfect Insta husband, I love it. Samantha, I mean, I've been a huge fan and follower of Food Diva for so many years. I was so happy to see your name on the script because what I love about you is I genuinely believe your reviews because, like you said, you're unbiased. No one's paying you to go there. You're doing it from the goodness of your own heart. I mean, obviously you're filling your own belly as well. How difficult is that in this region? Because my goodness, it's a big space that people have entered into now, isn't it? The foodie space. And people will just say nice things about nice places if they're given free food or being paid, right?
Yeah, and that's a real challenge out there, especially for the consumer to sort of filter through what's being said and what's true and what's been bought, essentially. But I've been doing this for 14 years, and right from the beginning, I've had a policy of impartial restaurant reviews. No freebies policy, no invitations when I'm reviewing. I tend to focus on new openings. Now, the challenge that you have is that gradually there's recognition. So in some restaurants, I went to review a restaurant at the weekend. I was recognized pretty early on in the dining experience.
Right.
Last month, I wasn't. So that can affect the dining experience somehow. But I firmly believe that to tell an honest story, you have to pay your own way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%. So Samantha, you're such a trusted voice in the city when it comes to food. But what originally drew you to the food scene and food reviewing, and how do you keep the passion alive? When you take something that's a passion and it turns into a job, it's really hard to keep that excitement going. What's your secret?
Well, I come from a family of hoteliers, so I grew up dining out regularly and therefore developed a very broad palate. I then worked in hospitality PR and here in the region and for a decade, but I wanted to do my own thing. And I always wanted to be, I call myself a restaurant critic, even though Instagram says food critic. That's because Instagram doesn't give you the option of restaurant critic. But because I am reviewing the whole dining experience. And when I set this up 14 years ago, my goal was to be impartial and to fill that gap in the market for a no freebies invitations policy. But I love dining out. And to this day, I still crave that dining experience. But when I'm going out to review is very different to when I'm going out on a date night or with my girlfriends. It's a completely different experience. One is work related because I'm mentally making notes in my head of everything that's happening in the restaurant.
Which
Samantha,
one do you enjoy more? Sorry.
You said you've been doing this for the last 14 years, so you're the best person to ask this question. How do you think the food scene has evolved in Dubai over the last few years? Because we are definitely seeing a rise of a lot of homegrown talent.
It's changed so much that I've changed my editorial policy in terms of the kind of restaurants that I'm reviewing. When I first started, it was all about celebrity chefs, imported concepts here. And that's gradually changed. And actually the pandemic really brought a rise and a real flourish of these homegrown, locally developed concepts. A lot of them chef-led, a lot of them unlicensed. So I actually changed my policy in line with, we were all supporting the local community at the time, 5 years ago, to really support locally developed concepts. And that's what I feel we can now celebrate. We have so many of them here now, whereas before they were the minority, now they're the majority.
We're also seeing the export of a lot of locally grown brands like Zaroub. What is your take on that?
Yeah, I think that's fantastic, and it's a sign of a maturing scene if we're now seeing Dubai brands here that are exported. 100%, and that's the way to go.
What about then, you mentioned the chefs, and we've done the celebrity chefs and whatnot. What advice could you give to, say, restaurant entrepreneurs or chefs within the region for how they can actually make an impact in the food scene in the UAE and in Dubai? Because it is different.
It is different. I mean, some will say it's easier, so others will say it's harder. I think the one thing that they need to do is market research. We don't need another Japanese restaurant in Dubai across any location. But do your market research on the concept, on the cuisine, on the location, and start small.
Right.
Unlicensed, chef-led.
Yep.
Start at home. We're seeing supper clubs that have becoming restaurants. That's the one that I was actually reviewing at the weekend as well. So there's, yeah, it's a tough market. So you also need to make sure you have the right investment behind you.
Do you feel as though the food scene is very volatile here? Like sometimes I'd go to a restaurant and then a couple of months later it's gone, you know? So what's the role of consistency, and do you have a specific restaurant that has been consistent throughout the 14 years in terms of service, offering, you know, do they stay for a long time?
It's a very good question. Now you have some that stand the test of time, and you have the golden oldies that we've had for as long as I've been here, 25 years, when you look at Adira. But you do also have restaurants that close. Now I like, when I'm going in to review a new restaurant, I like to give it at least a month to settle in. Sometimes you can't leave it too long because unfortunately they do close as well. But I think you get a sense right from the beginning whether there's legs and there's longevity in a restaurant concept here.
Okay.
I want to ask you, because we were discussing this a little bit earlier on, I feel like a lot of the times in Dubai, when you do want to dine out, it's not always about the food. It's a little bit about the ambience. You see, so I've been to, let's talk about some of the ones that I've been frequenting at J1, you know, place I like where I will never see you, Katie. I want to, let's go together sometime.
Nope, I'm not going.
A lot of the times I am guilty of going to places because I like the ambience more than the actual food. So do you think ambience plays a big role?
Massively. Now, I review on 6 parameters: food, service, location, atmosphere, interior, and value for money. And they're all equally rated. I give a 5 out of 5 knife rating if it epitomizes all the 6 points. But 100%, yes, you want good food, but you're also going out for a little bit of atmosphere. You want the ambience, otherwise you might as well order in. And I think we really saw that in the pandemic, when everyone was obviously ordering in because of the lockdown, and then the moment it opened up, everyone rushed to go out again. So I think different people want different things from different restaurants. My role is to try and essentially represent the consumer and my following and what they're looking for. But I think when you're going out, the food has got to be good. It doesn't need to be wow, but if the service wows you, for instance, you'll go back again.
100%.
If that person there, the restaurant manager or the waiter, remembers you, or the way he treats you, the customer service around that experience, you'll go back again. Yeah.
Just very quickly, because I know we're running out of time, I said the same thing. There's 2 things: is would I go back, first and foremost, and would I take visitors that come to Dubai? And if they tick those 2 boxes, happy days.
And not just the same restaurants all the time. There's tick those 2 boxes and I just keep going back to them.
And I feel like accounts like yours are very important, because I mean, I am in the influencing content creation scene and I get invited a lot of the times to new restaurants. And when a place is inviting you, and especially because I'm not a food or restaurant critic like yourself, I cannot be as brutally honest a lot of the times. And that's why I like your no free, and you pay and then you go there and you experience it authentically. And a lot of the times, the second time I have gone back to a restaurant that previously had invited me, I have been let down by the food and service because, you know, I don't have that fuss around me. They've forgotten that they had invited me a month or two ago, and now I'm just a paying customer. The same level of attention to detail is not paid. So that's why, you know.
But sometimes that fussing over you can have a negative impact. So, for instance, if I'm recognised in a restaurant, sometimes the service becomes over-attentive because they're suddenly worried, my God, Samantha's here, she's reviewing, if they figured out my name. I got called Sophie the other night. So that can be a challenge. Sometimes it doesn't work in the favour of the restaurant, actually, the whole recognition thing. They just need to be relaxed about the whole experience.